Happy 4th of July! Welcome to join me in the journey of creating Homelander, the Unison Strategy.
The easiest way to describe it is Sengoku Rance, but instead of conquering Japan, you're winning approval across America. Along the way, maybe Homelander finds redemption. Or maybe not.
That was the big idea, but the idea is too big, so I needed to focus on one playable slice first. So here's the slice I picked. A visual novel opening, a few character scenes, a choice, and then one New York street battle. That leads us to the content.
This kind of game lives or dies on scenes, characters, choices, and battles. If every line of dialogue and every combat setup had to be hard-coded, the project would collapse under its own weight. So I built the content pipeline early. Essentially, it's a small game engine that powers content in a web browser. Characters, portraits, skills, enemies, and scene steps are all editable through a browser editor. That let me move faster, but it created the next problem. The game still had to feel like a game. I didn't want it to look like a modern web dashboard with anime pictures taped onto it. I wanted it to feel like a real JRPG happening in real America. So a lot of the work became placement. Where should Sage stand? How do I keep portraits from stacking? Then, combat made everything harder. Homelander's laser attack was the first big animation test. At first, it was too easy for it to feel like a static sprite with a beam pasted on top. The solution was to treat the attack like a real staged animation. Lock the body scale, anchor the eyes, time the flash, control the cape pose, and line up the sound effect. Once that worked, I moved on to the mobs. And the mobs were where I learned the big lesson of this build. Code-driven animation simply doesn't work. The pipe mob needed to feel like multiple people hitting you, not one enemy doing one generic strike. So I stopped trying to be clever and started picking up tools like Krita to edit the animation sequences myself. Then I pulled impact sounds from one of my recordings, chose 5 hits, trimmed the sound down, and matched it to a short attack sequence. That made the enemy side finally feel like 2 different threats. One mob beats you physically, and the other weaponizes being recorded. The last problem was rhythm. Even when the attacks looked right, the enemies still felt cheap if they just popped into place, attacked, and disappeared. So now I added pacing to enemy turns. They slide in from the right, pause for a couple frames, attack, hold the result for a beat, and then slide back out. It's a tiny timing change, but it makes combat feel intentional. That's where the build is right now. It starts as a visual novel scene, moves into a New York crisis, then turns into a battle where violence, spectacle, approval, and media all start blending into the same system. There are still things I want to clean up with the visual novel scenes and the combat, but overall, I now have a good framework for both components. Next, I'm building the America map. State approval, scandals, the boys' heat that keeps the pressure on Homelander, and the choices that decide whether Homelander actually changes or just learns how to reign over America better. So, follow along if you want to be part of this journey, turning a messy prototype into a full strategy RPG. I'll be posting each build as it gets more playable, more tactical, and probably more unhinged. So, see you next time!